She told me, I'll wear what I want, text who I want, and go out with whoever I want. If you don't like it, leave. So I nodded, packed my bag, and left before she even finished getting ready. When she came stumbling in at sunrise, she finally noticed the empty closet and the message I left on her pillow. You got what you asked for. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The last thing Qley ever said to me wasn't, I love you, or I'm sorry. It was a declaration of war disguised as a statement of independence. It was a Thursday. I was sitting on the edge of our bed, the one we'd picked out together, my hands dangling between my knees. The room smelled of her perfume, something sharp and expensive I'd bought her last birthday, and the faint, metallic scent of hairspray. She stood in front of the full-length mirror, a figure of meticulous construction in a little black dress that wasn't so little. It was the kind of dress you wear for a verdict, not a drink. For weeks, I'd been living in a fog of quiet desperation. The text that made her smile at her phone with a secret curl of her lip, only for the screen to go dark when I walked in. The girls' nights that started at 8 p.m. and ended with a 4 a.m. stumble. The smell of another bar, another man's cigarette smoke clinging to her jacket. The new name, Mark from the gym, sprinkled into her conversations with a casual frequency that felt like drips of acid. I tried to talk about it last week. Gently, I thought. You seem distant lately. Is everything okay? She'd sighed, a long-suffering sound that instantly made me feel small. God, not this again. I'm just living my life, Alex. Do I need to file an itinerary with you? So I'd swallowed it, like I always did. But tonight, seeing her put on that dress, the one she'd once said was for a very, very special occasion, for a random Thursday out with Jess and Sarah, something in me finally cracked open. Not with a roar, but with a silent, terminal shatter. Qley, I said, my voice unervingly calm even to my own ears. Where are you going tonight? She met my eyes in the mirror, her gaze cool and appraising as she applied a final coat of blood-red lipstick. Out with the girls. I told you, you're wearing the anniversary dress. It's my dress. I'll wear what I want. A dismissive flick of her wrist. The coldness was a physical slap. I took a breath, the last breath of the man who was still trying. And is Mark going to be there? Her hand stilled. The room went quiet, save for the hum of the overhead light. She turned slowly, leaning against her vanity, crossing her arms. Her posture wasn't defensive, it was confrontational. A queen awaiting a challenge from a presumptuous peasant. What about him? I see his name a lot. You talk about him a lot. You're texting someone right now, and you're smiling like. I trailed off, the words feeling pathetic even as I said them. Her laugh was short, humorless. Oh, here we go. The Inquisition. Let me make this crystal clear for you, Alex. She took a step forward, each word a precise, deliberate bullet. I'll wear what I want. She gestured down the length of her body. I'll text who I want. She picked up her phone from the vanity and waved it, the screen glowing with some unread message. And I'll go out with whoever I want. She paused, letting the ultimatum hang in the perfumed air. Her eyes held mine, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I'd loved for 3 years. I saw a stranger, thrilled by her own cruelty, mistaking my devotion for captivity and my concern for control. She was enjoying this. This is my life, she said, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. I'm not your property. I don't answer to you. My heart, which had been hammering against my ribs, suddenly went still. The chaos of hurt, jealousy, and confusion didn't evaporate. It simply ceased to matter. It was like a circuit had finally overloaded and burned out, leaving behind a pristine, silent clarity. The fog lifted. I saw the room, the bed, the woman in front of me, with absolute, brutal definition. She must have seen something shift in my face, because her smug expression faltered for a millisecond. She doubled down, delivering the final, pre-rehearsed line, the one she clearly thought would put me back in my place. Apologetic, compliant, begging for scraps of her attention. So, if you don't like it, she finished, a cold, triumphant smile touching her painted lips, you can leave. For a long moment, I just looked at her. I saw the girl I'd driven 2 hours to pick up from the airport at 1 a.m. I saw the woman who'd cried into my shirt when her cat died. And then I saw the ghost that stood before me now, wearing her face like a mask. A profound, almost eerie peace settled over me. I nodded. Just once. A simple, slow, definitive dip of my chin. The faintest ghost of a smile touched my own lips. Not of happiness, but of recognition. Of a problem finally solved. Her triumphant smirk froze, then twisted into confusion. What? But I was already moving. I stood up from the bed, my movements smooth and purposeful, devoid of any drama. I walked past her, close enough to catch another wave of that expensive perfume, and went to our shared closet. I reached to the top shelf and pulled down my old gym duffel bag, the one she'd always hated because it was ratty. What are you doing? Her voice had lost its steel. It was now edged with a shrill note of disbelief. I didn't answer. I unzipped the bag and placed it on the bed. I opened my side of the closet and began taking out my clothes. Not in armfuls, but item by item. My button-down shirts. My jeans. My sweaters. I folded them and placed them neatly in the bag. I was a librarian quietly reshelving a chapter of my life that was now conclusively over. Alex, stop it. You're being childish. This isn't funny. I walked into the bathroom. My toothbrush, my razor, the unscented deodorant she mocked. Into the bag. I came back to the nightstand on my side of the bed. I picked up the book I was reading, a biography of a silent film star. I took the framed photo of my parents. I left the one of us at the beach, our faces sunburnt and smiling. You are unbelievable. Is this a tantrum? Because I'm not changing my plans. Her words bounced off the new, soundproof wall around me. The only thing I heard was the quiet, logical voice in my head. Socks. Underwear. Passport. Laptop charger. Within 10 minutes, my side of the room was erased. The closet looked cavernous. My nightstand was bare save for a lamp. The bag was full, zipped. She was still standing by the vanity, her arms now dropped to her sides, her mouth slightly open. The defiant script was gone, replaced by dumbfounded shock. She hadn't moved. She was still in her victory dress, waiting for the second act where I begged, where I fought, where I proved my love by enduring her disrespect. I slung the duffel bag over my shoulder. It was heavier than I expected. I took one last, sweeping glance around the room. My eyes fell on the notepad she kept on her nightstand for shopping lists and inspirational quotes. I walked over, picked up her fancy pen, and wrote 3 words on a clean sheet. I didn't look at her. I folded the paper once, walked to her side of the bed, and placed it squarely in the center of her pillow. Then I turned and walked out of the bedroom. Alex, where are you going? Don't you dare walk away from me. Her voice chased me down the hallway, rising in pitch from anger to something like panic. I didn't pause. I collected my laptop from the living room, my keys from the bowl by the door. I could hear her stomping behind me, her heels clicking on the hardwood. You'll be back, she shouted, the words laced with a desperate attempt to reclaim control. You have nowhere to go. You'll come crawling back by tomorrow. You pathetic. The front door closed behind me, cutting off her sentence mid-insult. The sound was not a slam, but a firm, final click. The night air was cool and quiet. I loaded the bag into the trunk of my car. As I got into the driver's seat, I glanced up at our second-floor window. The light was still on. I could see the blur of her silhouette, standing there, watching. I started the car, the engine a low purr. I didn't speed off. I pulled away from the curb with the same calm deliberation with which I had packed my bag. In my rearview mirror, the window with the light got smaller and smaller, until it was just another yellow square in the facade of the building, and then it was gone. The silence in the car was immense. It wasn't the silence of loneliness. It was the silence of a verdict being rendered, of a sentence being served. She had given me a choice. For the first time in a long time, I had taken it. I drove for 20 minutes with no destination in mind. The streets were a familiar blur of neon signs and headlights, a world that looked the same but now existed on the other side of a fundamental line. The adrenaline, the cold clarity that had fueled my packing, began to ebb, leaving behind a hollow, echoing space in my chest. It wasn't grief. Not yet. It was the sheer vibrational aftermath of a detonation. I found a chain hotel near the highway, a bland, impersonal box of light. The room smelled of citrus-scented cleaner and stale air. I dropped my duffel bag on the floor, the sound absurdly loud in the silence. For a long time, I just stood there, listening to the hum of the mini fridge. Then, methodically, I got to work. I silenced my phone, not turned it off, just muted it. I took a shower so hot it turned my skin pink, washing the last traces of her perfume and the tension of the apartment from my skin. I put on a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt, clothes that felt like mine in a way nothing had in that shared closet for months. I ordered a truly terrible cheeseburger from room service and ate every bite at the small desk, staring at the muted television playing a sports highlight show. The normality of the act, eating, swallowing, tasting salt and grease, was grounding. This was life. This simple, quiet, solitary act. No one was watching me eat. No one was sighing because I'd gotten ketchup on the plate. It was just me and a bad burger in a quiet room. My phone, face up on the desk, began to illuminate. A call. Qley. The screen glowed, pulsed, and went dark. A minute later, it lit up again. And again. After the fourth call, the text started buzzing in, a rapid-fire staccato against the wood. 10:47 p.m. Where are you? This isn't funny. 10:49 p.m. My closet is. Did you take my black heels? You better not have taken my heels, Alex. 10:53 p.m. Answer your phone. We need to talk. You're overreacting. 11:21 p.m. Seriously? You're giving me the silent treatment now? Real mature. 11:45 p.m. I'm home. Where are you? I read each one with a detached curiosity, like an anthropologist studying the rituals of a foreign tribe. The concern wasn't for me, for us. It was for her disrupted evening, for her missing shoes. The epicenter of her crisis was her closet, not her relationship. I took another bite of my burger. The phone lit up with a final call at 3:17 a.m. I imagined her stumbling in, the adrenaline of the night gone, replaced by liquor and dawning reality. She probably saw the note then. I pictured her picking it up, unfolding it, reading those 6 words under the glow of her bedside lamp. You got what you asked for. The call went to voicemail. I didn't listen to it then. I finally slept, a deep, dreamless sleep of utter exhaustion, not on my half of our bed, but in the exact center of a king-sized hotel mattress. The next morning, in the cold, practical light of day, I listened to the voicemail. Her voice was slurry, thick with tears and something else, maybe Cabernet. Alex. God. The closet is so empty. You really left? You left? After everything? I didn't mean. Come home. We need to talk. Please. Just come home. I'm sorry you misunderstood. Just come home and we'll fix it. The tone was all wrong. It wasn't the remorse of someone who had wielded cruelty like a knife. It was the baffled whine of a child who'd broken a toy and was shocked it wouldn't magically reassemble itself. I'm sorry you misunderstood. Not I'm sorry I said it. Not I'm sorry I meant it. I deleted the voicemail. I blocked her number. The following week was a study in surreal logistics. I used my savings to put a deposit on a small, furnished studio apartment across town. It had a view of a brick wall and the distant sound of a train, but it was mine. I gave my notice at our shared apartment complex, citing the end of a cohabitation agreement, and paid my half of the final month's rent to avoid any legal drama. I contacted the internet and utility companies and had my name removed from the accounts. It was administrative euthanasia, killing off the shared life, item by item. I allowed myself one lapse. 1 week, morbid moment of curiosity. I unblocked her number just long enough to see a torrent of missed calls and texts that had stacked up, then opened her Instagram. The night I left, she'd posted a blurry, crowded shot of a cocktail, her nails, that blood-red shade, wrapped around the glass. The caption, living my best life. Hashtag free, hashtag no negativity, hashtag good vibes only. The comments from her inner circle were a chorus of fire emojis and "YS Queen" from Jess and Sarah. The posts over the next few days told a subtler story. A quote graphic about storms before peace. A selfie where her smile didn't reach her eyes. Captioned, learning to be my own rock. Then, 5 days after I left, a new face appeared. Mark. A gym selfie of the two of them, her cheek pressed against his shoulder, his bicep flexing near her face. His expression was a smirk. Hers was triumphant, but her eyes looked frantic, like someone clinging to a life raft. The caption, when you upgrade to first class. Airplane, I felt nothing. Not jealousy, not anger. Just a faint, clinical pity. She'd traded a committed, if taken for granted, Connection for the flashy approval of a man who clearly viewed her as a trophy to be posed with. I took a screenshot, not for revenge, but as a receipt, a final piece of evidence. Then I blocked her on every platform I could think of. The silence that followed was the most valuable thing I'd ever owned. 3 weeks into my new, quiet existence, my phone rang with an unknown number. I'd just gotten back from a run, my new routine, the rhythmic pounding of pavement, a therapy I'd never needed before. I answered, breath still heavy. Alex? Oh my God, you answered. It was Lisa, Qley's most toxically loyal friend. Her voice was a theatrical whisper. Lisa. I took a sip of water. Look, I know I shouldn't be calling, but I'm worried about her. I'm worried about you guys. This is crazy. There is no you guys, Lisa. Don't be like that, she chided, as if I were a petulant teen. She's a mess, Alex. A total disaster. You need to call her. I remained silent, letting the pressure of the silence build on her end. She barreled on. That Mark guy? Total. Fucking. User. He ghosted her. Like, completely. After, She lowered her voice further. After he got what he wanted. She showed up at his place, and some other girl answered the door. Can you imagine the humiliation? I could. Vividly. I said nothing. And her friends from that night you left? The ones she went out with? They've totally ditched her. Said she was being too dramatic, too clingy. Can you believe that? Lisa's tone suggested I should be outraged on Qley's behalf. I wasn't. I understood it perfectly. Qley had mistaken the applause of an audience for the loyalty of friends. She's a wreck at work, Lisa continued, gossip now fueling her more than concern. She got written up last week for missing a deadline and then crying in a meeting when her boss called her on it. She just sits in the apartment, crying and watching those sad movies. It's pathetic. The word hung in the air. Pathetic. Even her advocate couldn't avoid it. She just keeps saying she made a huge mistake, that you were right about everything, that she was stupid. She needs you, Alex. You were always the stable one. You have to fix this. There it was. The core of it. Not I love you, I miss you. But you were the stable one. You have to fix this. I was not a partner to be loved. I was a function to be performed. A emotional janitor, hired to clean up the mess she was thrilled to make. Thanks for letting me know, Lisa, I said, my voice flat and polite, the voice of a customer service agent ending a call. There was a stunned pause. That's it. Thanks for letting me know. What is wrong with you? She's suffering. I appreciate the information. I repeated, the professional detachment in my tone absolute. Take care of yourself. I hung up before she could sputter a response. I immediately blocked the number. The invasion of my peace felt like a violation, but my resolve didn't crack. It hardened, turning to diamond. Later that night, the final piece of her public unraveling found me. A text from my old neighbor, Dave, a decent guy who'd always given me a sympathetic look when Qley's voice would carry into the hallway. Hey man, hope you're good. Thought you should know. Saw for rent sign go up in your old window today. Management might have finally had enough. Crazy. I thanked him and stared at the message. The apartment. Our apartment. The stage for her final performance. She was losing it. She couldn't afford it on her own, not with her lifestyle, not likely with a mark on her work record. She was being forced to abandon the set of our drama, the physical space where she'd felt powerful enough to issue her ultimatum. Karma wasn't a lightning bolt. It was a slow, inevitable tide, eroding the ground beneath her feet. It was the consequence of her own words, her own choices, playing out in the cold, hard currency of rent, friendship, and self-respect. She had wanted freedom from the constraints of my care. She was now drowning in the absolute, uncharted expanse of it. I powered down my phone. Outside my new studio window, the distant train whistle blew, a lonesome, steady sound. It sounded like movement, like leaving. I was already gone. The first contact was a breach in the dam. After Lisa's call, the attempts began in earnest, seeping through the digital walls I'd built. A new number texted me a week later. I knew it was her before I even read it. The cadence was a ghost in the machine. Unknown number. It's me. Please don't ignore this. I can't believe you just abandoned me like that. We built a life. We need to talk. I'm sorry you misunderstood what I meant. I was stressed. You know how I get. I stared at the message. I'm sorry you misunderstood. The non-apology anthem. It wasn't stress. It was truth, finally spoken aloud. I didn't block the number immediately. I let it sit, a dead fish in my inbox. My silence was the reply. 2 days later, another text. Unknown number. I miss you. I miss you, S. The apartment is so empty and quiet. It's awful. Remember our trip to Big Sur? We were so happy. We can be that again. Please. Just talk to me. Nostalgia as a weapon. She was painting over the grim, final mural of our ending with a postcard from years ago. She wasn't remembering me. She was remembering a feeling, a service I had provided. The feeling of being adored without the burden of reciprocation. I deleted it. The voicemail came next, left at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Her voice was thick, wavering, a performance of shattered vulnerability. Alex, it's Qley. I don't know what to do. Everything is falling apart. I had to give up the apartment. I'm staying with my cousin, and it's humiliating. Mark was a lie. Everyone was a lie. You were the only real thing. I was so stupid. I needed to feel wanted. And you were just always there. I took you for granted. I know that now. Please. Can we just go for coffee? Just talk. I'll do anything. I love you. I never stopped. The confession was almost impressive in its staggering self-absorption. You were just always there. A piece of furniture. I needed to feel wanted. So she sought the cheap, flashy one of a stranger, discarding the deep, steady one I'd offered. And the final, desperate, I love you. A currency she was trying to spend after declaring it bankrupt. It was the most honest she'd ever been, and it made me feel nothing but a faint, cold disgust. I saved the voicemail, not as a memento, but as evidence. Proof, for myself, of what I'd walked away from. The escalation was inevitable. A week after the voicemail, the same unknown number rang while I was meal prepping in my studio, the rhythmic chop-chop of my knife on the cutting board a calming metronome. I answered, a distracted mistake, thinking it might be the building manager. Hello. Are you happy now? Her voice was a shriek, stripped of all pretense, raw and ragged. It was the sound of the mask finally shattering. Is this what you wanted? To destroy me? My life is in ruins. I lost my apartment, Alex. My job. My friends are gone. I said nothing. I laid the knife down quietly. You were supposed to fight for me. She screamed, the words tearing out of her. That's what you do when you love someone. You were supposed to save me from myself. You were supposed to stop me. Instead, you just left. You selfish bastard. There it was. The stunning, breathtaking inversion. Her cruelty was now my failure. Her choices were my neglect. In the funhouse mirror of her mind, I was the villain for accepting the terms of surrender she had dictated. I finally spoke, my voice quiet and flat. A stone dropped into her cacophony. You told me to leave if I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So I left. The silence on the other end was pulsing with furious, incoherent energy. I heard a choked gasp, a sob of pure rage. You don't get to throw my words back at me. You don't get to be the calm one. You have to. I ended the call. I blocked the number. Then, I went to my laptop and initiated a change of my cell number. It was time. The last tether, however frayed, needed to be cut. The piece that descended was deeper now, fortified. I had heard the final form of her anger, the true colors flying at the end. There was nothing left to know. Part 5. The final rejection 2 months to the day after I walked out, it rained. A cold, relentless autumn rain that slickened the pavements and turned the city lights into watery smears. I was returning from the gym, a new habit that had reshaped not just my body but my mind, my duffel bag slung over a shoulder, a sturdy umbrella in my hand. My new building was a renovated warehouse with a secure entry, a small fortress of my own making. As I turned the corner onto my street, I saw her. She was huddled under the narrow awning of a closed coffee shop next to my building's entrance, soaked through. Her hair was plastered to her head, her mascara bleeding in dark trails down her cheeks. She wore a cheap, thin jacket that did nothing against the downpour. She looked smaller, broken, a discarded doll. The woman from the mirror was gone. Our eyes met. Hers widened, a frantic, hungry hope flashing in them. She took a stumbling step forward, out into the rain. Alex. I didn't stop walking, but I slowed. This had to be faced. Evasion would only fuel the fantasy. I stopped a few feet from her, the rain drumming on my umbrella. I didn't offer to share its shelter. How did you find me? My voice was calm, conversational. I might have been asking for the time. Lisa, she heard from someone who heard from Dave. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering violently. Her teeth chattered. I had to see you. I had to. You're getting wet, I observed. There was no concern in the statement. It was a fact. She let out a sob that was half laugh, half choke. You think I care? Look at me. Look what's happened. I lost everything, Alex. Everything. I waited. I said nothing. The silence seemed to panic her more than any anger could have. She rushed forward, the words tumbling out in a muddy, desperate stream. I made a mistake. A huge, huge mistake. You were right about everything. Mark, the going out, the way I treated you. I was stupid. I was scared. I needed to feel wanted. And you were just so solid. And I don't know what I thought. Please. She took another step, her hand rising as if to touch my arm. I took a subtle half step back, maintaining the space. The rejection of the gesture made her flinch as if struck. Can we just go upstairs? Please? Just to talk. Out of the rain. I'm so cold. We can just talk. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll quit going out. I'll be the girl you fell in love with again. I promise. Just give me a chance to fix it. Her eyes were huge, pleading pools of black in the pallor of her face. This was the full performance, the abject surrender. Once, the sight of her like this would have shattered me. I would have folded her in my coat, taken her upstairs, made tea, and spent months trying to glue the pieces back together, accepting all the blame just to stop the tears. Now, I saw only the manipulation, the calculated desperation. She wasn't offering to change. She was offering to play a role, the role of the woman I'd loved, if it would get her in from the cold and back into the life she'd incinerated. I looked at her, really looked, for the first time since that night. And I felt it. The final, absolute absence. Not hatred, not pity. Indifference. Qley, I said, my voice as steady as stone. You told me exactly what you wanted. To wear, text, and go out with whoever you wanted. You gave me a clear instruction if I didn't like it, to leave. She opened her mouth to interrupt, but I continued, the quiet precision of my words cutting through the rain and her panic. I followed your instructions. To the letter. I left. That transaction is complete. It wasn't a transaction, she wailed. It was a relationship. No, I corrected softly. It stopped being a relationship the moment you issued an ultimatum thinking I'd never call your bluff. You wanted a dynamic where your freedom was absolute and my devotion was unconditional. That's not a partnership. That's a hostage situation. I chose to release myself. Tears mixed with the rainwater on her face. The man you're looking for, I said. The one who worried about your outfits and your texts, who waited up, who wanted to build a life with you. He doesn't live here anymore. You evicted him. I gestured slightly with my umbrella towards the secured door of my building. My life now is peaceful. I don't monitor anyone's outfit or texts. I don't wait up. I just live. And you. I met her gaze, my own utterly clear and empty of any malice or warmth. You are not part of that peace. Please don't come here again. The finality in my tone was an iron door sliding shut. She saw it. The frantic hope in her eyes guttered and died, replaced by a hollow, dawning horror. She hadn't just lost me. She had made me into someone who could look at her drowning and feel nothing. I was her living, breathing consequence. I turned and walked the last few steps to my building's door. I pulled out my key fob. Alex. The cry was stripped bare now, just raw pain. I didn't look back. The fob beeped. The lock clicked open with a solid, satisfying thunk. I pulled the heavy glass and steel door open. Just as I stepped into the warm, dry, brightly lit lobby, a voice called out cheerfully from the interior hallway. Hey, Alex. Brutal out there, huh? It was Maya, my neighbor from down the hall. She was in running gear, stretching her calves against the wall, her face flushed and smiling. She was vibrant, independent, and had never once asked me for anything but to sign for a package. I turned to her, the door beginning to swing shut behind me, sealing off the sight of the rain-soaked figure on the street. A genuine, easy smile touched my lips for the first time in months. Tell me about it, I said, my voice warm and light, a world away from the calm cold outside. Still on for that hike Saturday if the weather clears? Absolutely. Can't wait, she grinned. The door clicked shut with a final, muffled seal. The last sound from outside was lost, whether it was a sob, a shout, or simply the hiss of the rain. I didn't know and would never wonder. The lobby was quiet, warm, and clean. The past was on the other side of the glass, blurred and irrelevant, already washing away. I walked toward the elevators with Maya, talking about trail maps, my gym bag feeling light on my shoulder, my peace intact, my future my own. The ghost had been seen, acknowledged, and dismissed. It had no power here. Thanks for watching.